Welcome, everyone, to the fourth edition of Inside the Den, where we discuss everything to do with the WSU varsity club wrestling team. Before we get too much farther, don't forget you can find us on Instagram at WSU_wrestling. If you want to go to the Washington State University site, all you have to do is go to urec.wsu.edu. You will find the wrestling page there, everything to do with our program, contact information. Reminder to everyone, Saturday, July 22nd is our big golf fundraiser with a banquet and a reunion. And Susan Burnett put out a little message to all the coaches just to let us know some great things that are happening. We already have about $2,200 of auction items, and I know more are coming. So I love a good auction. I'm gonna buy auction tickets or auction or do whatever, and hopefully, I'll be able to win a fun prize. Yeah, so make sure that if you haven't done so, if you signed up and you've got a payment to make, please make sure you make your payments. I know that we're accepting those right now, and those payments are coming in. And again, fill in Susan Burnett. wsu.urec.edu is where you can find their information, or at WSU_wrestling. So our guest today is the first to show up at practice, the last to show up at practice, or to leave practice. So he's the first in, he's the last out. He studies more film than Coach Phil and Coach Hunter Haney combined, which is really saying something. He is a rampant Pokemon collector, player,
All of it.
all of it. Pokemon, apparently, quite into it, quite the obsession, which sounds like a wonderful obsession to have. He has, little known fact, and I didn't know this until today. He has a wrestling mat in his backyard. And we're going to talk about that too, because this is very high on my anniversary list this year, is for my husband to purchase a wrestling mat for me for our backyard. He is undefeated in the conference, 21-0. He was voted the MVP by his teammates, or outstanding wrestler, and the Northwest Regional NWCA champion, all by pins, at 184 pounds. David Darroch, welcome to Inside the Den.
I've really wanted to be on here since we started doing this. So I mean, I'm glad I'm getting on early.
Well, you're number 4. You're for the core. The core program is Inside the Den. Then we have a Coffee with the Coach, and we'll do some other special things. But Inside the Den is where we highlight athletes, and so you're in the number 4 spot.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And you were nominated by Kobe, correct?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you that Kobe was like, it's David's the next one?
I mean, it means a lot. I mean, like I said, I wanted to get on here, but I have trouble with self-advocacy. So it would have felt really rude to be like, oh, I want to be on next. And I mean, it means a lot, right? It's really nice to, it's nice to get any kind of shout out, and Kobe's my guy. We became really good buddies, because we were both cutting absolutely terrible amounts of weight. So we would cut weight together, and that's how we became buds. And it's really nice. I will take any opportunity to talk about wrestling. I mean, you could, anyone around me, the people at I recently attended a training at work, and I turned it into a conversation about wrestling because someone was talking about my ears, and I was like, oh, my ears, how'd I get those? Oh, well, here's how. And so I mean, it's fantastic to be on here. And the second that because I watch all the podcasts, the second that I heard that from Kobe, I shot him a message. I was like, thank you so much, man. And I immediately messaged you, and I was like, let's get this started. I'm a big schedule plan person. I wanted to fit this in between all of my trainings for the day, and it's just I'm so psyched I could get on here at all, honestly.
So Kobe shared about how he wasn't managing or reducing his weight in a healthy or smart manner, which is really just a kind of a systemic problem in wrestling. He shared in his episode about how he learned from Hunter a healthy way to do it, where you're eating really healthy, you feel really good. Did you also kind of jump in on that and learn some, a better way, a healthier way to manage, maintain, or reduce your weight safely and healthy?
So I did not jump on the hunter train, unfortunately. I so some background. My freshman year of college, I wrestled 197 because after my junior and senior years of high school, I was like, I am so extremely sick of cutting weight. I wrestled 170 my junior year, and this is no joke. Whenever I was making 170 my junior year, the first time I made 170, I was cutting weight so badly, I went blind. um, I I went blind for a little bit, and at that point, it was like, forget the weight cut. I need a Gatorade and to make sure that I'm like okay.
Yeah.
And then my senior year at 182, even with COVID, I was so fixated on like I want to win state, and I decided I'm going to win state at 182. That even with COVID and everything, I just held out hope, and I was an optimist. I was like, you know what, maybe they'll put the season back on. They didn't, but I still made 182 and I wrestled everybody. So my freshman year of college, I was like, I'm done. I'm wrestling 197. I'm just gonna. I want to be able to like eat and like chill out, and it's my first year of college. I don't want the extra strain of cutting weight. But then after my freshman season, which was extremely lackluster, because I had talked with Phil on and off about 184, and so over the summer I made the decision. I was like, I'm gonna go down to 184, and because I weighed 212 pounds the August before my sophomore season, I was like, okay, I have to shrink. I can't just obviously I can't cut water this early. And I would always talk to my teammates all the time when we had a competition on say Saturday, and they would be practicing in sweats on Monday, and I was like, you're gonna drink all that water back, right? Like why? Like I practiced in sweatpants because I just prefer to practice in sweatpants. And as the season went on, I found out I'm the minority in that. Uh, I I don't mess with shorts a lot of the time, but I just I just thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna focus on just single ingredient foods for the most part. I'll get into a routine, right? That's my big thing. Is I eat the same stuff more or less every single day.
Mhm.
Um, it became like a joke between me, Luke, John, and Kobe, because I have a really bad tendency to like repeat the same tidbits over and over again over the course of like days, weeks, and months. And they became so sick of me because we were all talking about our weight cuts, and they became so sick of me saying like I try to only eat foods that for every 100 calories they have 10 grams of protein. They became so sick of hearing that because I kept saying it. Yeah, but it works. I ate a bunch of egg whites. I ate a bunch of eggs. I would talk to people about that. I would say like, I'm not eating egg whites because I think egg yolks are bad. I'm eating egg whites because I'm a college student and I need to stretch my eggs. Um,
Yeah.
and then yeah, I just ate what made me feel good. I ate a lot of fruit. I would say that I managed my condition, not my well, I managed my weight cut very well because my conditioning was not just something where it's like, oh, this isn't a problem anymore because I used to get tired all the time because of my weight cuts. My
Right.
conditioning was an asset. I had I think two overtime matches this year, and I won them both, and I won them both relatively early because I was able to gas guys out with pace. I also had a lot of matches where I would be down by points early, and then I could come back because I just had better lungs than the other guy. So next year I will be contacting Hunter, um, and especially because that can help. Like I would I'm not like perfect, right? Like every 2 weeks or so, like whenever I was making my descent, especially, I would have like something, and then that would pretty quickly turn into like um again, like I joke all the time about like how I just annihilate like cereal. Like I'll eat like a box of cereal in one sitting. So I would do that sometimes like after competition, and I was like, okay, well, I don't feel very good when I do that, but it's kind of like this like emotional release from the weight cutting.
Yeah.
So how am I going to handle that? And so contacting Hunter next season is going to be a big part of that. I intend to return to 184. So
Yeah. Okay. It takes a habit formation, especially with food, can take a really long time for us to build new habit formation. We have an emotional connection with food. We have these habits that we just do. We don't even think about it. Of course, there's taste. Um, as an athlete training really hard, how do I make sure I'm getting the right caloric intake? I'm getting all the nutrition I need. I am getting enough protein. And then, what am I eating for recovery? And what am I eating after a match or after a tournament that is enjoyable, but it's also not helping me backslide into, all these problems and that kind of crazy cycle. So, um, I think one thing that I'm appreciative of with the WSU program is Phil as head coach and all the other coaches. We want you all to. We're not interested in starvation diet. That's a thing of the past. We're eating for nutrition. We're eating for health. We're eating to perform at the highest level, and also maintaining the enjoyment of food. I think is really really important. All of you at some point in your lives will stop competing. We want you to have a good relationship with food. We want it to be enjoyable. We don't want you to, at least coming out of the WC wrestling program, think back and be like, oh my gosh, all these terrible habits and things that we used to do. So I'm excited that you are kind of making this journey and with food and nutrition, and that you're adding this other component to, to being a wrestler. So we've kind of skipped over something, but please just share with everyone the year you are in school, your major, the high school you went to, any other kind of like fun facts, where you're from, things like that.
I'm a sophomore, and well, oh, my goodness, I'm gonna be a junior.
Oh, you
And I'm
just finished your
studying.
sophomore year. Okay.
And I'm studying kinesiology now. So my freshman year, I did computer science. My sophomore year, I did management information systems. And if you're catching a pattern here, I really wanted to work in software, but I wanted to work in software because it was secure and because I could make good money.
Yeah.
And anyone who talks to me for any amount of time, they would never guess that I like technology because frankly, I didn't like it enough. I switched to kinesiology. I am going to be the best dang strength and conditioning coach for wrestlers on this coast, this country, wherever, and hopefully eventually get my DPT done to be a physical therapist so I can enable people to continue to do what they love.
Awesome. I think kinesiology and everything you're describing in your future is going to be a perfect fit for you. And what's cool is it's going to keep you close to sports, and it's going to keep you close to wrestling, because this is a big passion of yours. I can't imagine you not being connected to wrestling. So,
I can't either.
um, let's just real quick get into uh the 21-0 conference record. And how did you get there? How did you get from, as you described, like this lackluster freshman year to now becoming 21-0 conference, Northwest Regional Conference Champion, pinning your way through all your opponents? What were the changes? What was like the moment where you're like, I got to make changes? What were those changes? And what are the changes that you're looking to make in the next season?
My so again, I'm going to give way too much background on this, but my freshman year of high school was where wrestling, like, I really started to like fall in love with the sport. And so to that point, my entire like knowledge of like how to get better at wrestling was to just do more, just do more, just do more. As time goes on, now we're going to talk about how often I train, but what I learned about is this concept of minimum effective dose. You do what you have to do to get the stimulus that you need to adapt. So I think like my absurd like amount of training probably peaked. I mean, this season I managed it better because you can do so much training if you just manage the volume of each individual area that you're training. So the difference between my freshman year and this year is more wrestling. So I would lift super hard my freshman year. Um, I would practice every single day. I would study film. So I would like on Saturdays and Sundays when there was no practice, I was in my dorm doing like stance and motion. I was
Yeah.
I, I'm just I was n- I'm I mean I'm still nutty about it, But my nutrition was very poor.
Mhm.
My mental health was very poor. If any, I implore any incoming college freshman to do this, no matter how socially anxious you are, or no matter what scenario that you find yourselves in. Because this was also partially due to some personal affairs. Make friends. Do not be socially isolated. My freshman year of college, I would tell people this all the time. On days where there was not practice, I probably did not say a single word. I did not talk because the only time that I was around people that I would talk with was practice.
Mhm.
So I was pretty miserable, and then that kind of bled into my wrestling. Um, it was also pretty tough. It was a big change. So my in high school, if you watch any of my old high school matches, don't put yourself through that. Um, I was very focused on I wanted to out technique people. So even though I was in the higher weight classes, right, I just wasn't particularly strong. So I wasn't a big person about the whole like, oh, I want to bang on this guy's head and beat him up. I was just more like, I bet I can do a single leg better than you can defend a single leg. So I'm just gonna make this a skill game, and then we'll see. Because my one of my favorite wrestlers, Yanni Diakomahalis, he said that after winning, I think it was like 2 titles in. And you see that in his early wrestling where he made it a skills game, but then you see as he got older and he moved up to 149, he has a little bit more pop and a little bit more physicality. So especially this year, I added that pop and physicality. Um, I kind of think my weight cut made me meaner, but I think it helped. Uh, part of the reason Part of the reason I went down to 184 was because I was like, okay, I know who's going to be at 197 next year, and I know who's going to be at 184 this year. And this is not a knock on my teammates at 197. It's just there's more people at 184,
Mhm.
and I knew that it would keep me more honest in practice if I went down to 184 and there was more people that I had to beat. I wanted to have to beat everybody for my spot. So I went down to 184, and it panned out really well. And I was healthy. I had a lot of energy. I joke about me being a little bit grumpier. Not really. I I was happier
Grumpiness
this
in
year.
wrestling, I don't know what you're talking about.
I honestly, like, my big thing like this year is just I was happier. I was a lot happier. Like, in my personal life, in my day to day, like, I was walking around and I was like, I made a very conscious effort to like sit in the front of class, smile at people, talk to people, right? Even like if I have group project members, right, be the first one to communicate rather than waiting for everyone else to sort stuff out. Um, the thing about this sport is that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that applies even if you're not an athlete. But I learned that through wrestling, where it's like your mentality about how you would do something has to carry over into other things. And it gets absolutely nutty to the point where it's like I'll be doing like pull-ups and I feel like I'm about to fail. And then there was this guy from Grays Harbor named Sione Halo at 197, and he kicked my butt like 2 or 3 times. And I got because it was legitimately like I just wasn't on his level. And I hated nothing more than that. So I would be doing pull-ups and I would picture that I was in on his leg. And I'm just like pulling, 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 pulling. Um Another thing that was a big change was I talked about how hard I would lift during my freshman year. So I would lift like 5 days a week. Um, and then this year, even though I would do stuff in the gym, I would only lift weights, like barbell stuff,
Yeah.
twice a week. I would do snatches and clean and jerks twice a week. I would, like I would do stuff that could stimulate my legs better because that's just what was better. And then I would do my pull-ups, dips, all that stuff. I hate bench press. I can't. I hate bench pressing
I'm with
so
you.
much.
I'm right there. Never want to see it again.
Yeah, I find it boring. So I just do like weighted dips and stuff. I'm like
Yeah.
I finally got a muscle up this year. So just being able to do
Oh,
like calisthenic stuff, that's the big difference maker. And also just coming back to like um it's wrestling, and especially, I believe we talked about this a little bit off screen, but whenever, when I was in high school and like middle school, when I just wasn't very good and I would lose a lot, competition became like this dreadful thing where like I got it like for the longest time, like I would show up to competition day and it's like, well, all right, I guess I'm just gonna get my butt kicked today,
yeah.
right? And then that would carry over even whenever like I was like I like started in high school finally, and I was like, oh well, okay, I better not, like, it became about like, oh, I don't want to lose, right? um and then especially like my senior year, even though the state tournament being called off sucks, it sucks. um I think it was probably one of the best things to happen to my wrestling because because of COVID, I couldn't like it was hard for me to get a job. I couldn't, go out and hang out with my friends. So I was like, okay, I'm just all in on wrestling. I get to be even more all in on wrestling. At the top of like COVID, I was working out like 5 times a day. Because I would be working out like 3 times a day, and then I would go on Instagram and I would see this thing, and I was like, oh, I gotta do that, so I'm gonna go do that. I
Is this
saw Nathan
is
Thomas.
this I'm gonna go do that on the mat in the backyard.
Speaking of the mat in the backyard, so people, well, no one's like said it to me explicitly about the mat in the backyard, but I kind of feel like sometimes whenever I talk to people about the mat, they go, "Oh, well, of course you do that. You have a mat in the backyard." What a lot of people don't think about is that I was doing that regardless of the mat in the backyard. So at the beginning of quarantine, my knees were mangled because I would go to like a grass field and I would do
Yeah.
something like I remember one day I was like, I'm gonna do 1,000 shots. I'm gonna drill 1,000 shots, just shadow wrestling. And my ankles and knees and everything were just blown because I did it on grass in a grass field where there was like lumps and like my ankles would catch or like my kneecap would just kind of like rotate funny on my sweep single legs. And so I did yard work. I did miscellaneous yard work for about like a month, 2 months, to save the money for that wrestling mat. And it has gotten daily use, multiple times a day use. That thing has been through the ringer. It's been like so since quarantine. I got it during quarantine, so it's been like 3 years, and it's just I mean, but it's a thing for me like where because for a long time too, I was kind of like, oh well, in like middle school and like high school, like early high school, I was like, oh, I'd be so good if I could just like practice at home, right? I'd be
Yeah.
so good if I could just do that. And then
Yeah.
like after my freshman year is when I started wrestling year round, so I'd wrestle at club. And then obviously COVID, there's no club practice. At no point during COVID was I like, oh well, I don't have a mat, so I'm just gonna like not do stuff. And that's my big thing too, is when you can't do something, right? Or whenever your time is limited, wrestle. We're wrestlers, right? I talk a lot about weightlifting. I don't like it that much. I like weightlifting because of what it does for my wrestling.
Yeah.
Um, I like it because sometimes like it's just I mean, it's something you can do, right? I trust me, if I had a key, instead of going to the gym, I would be breaking into our wrestling room in the middle of
Same.
the day lectures.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Um, yeah, so I've wanted a backyard mat for as long as I can remember, and I see videos and stuff all the time. And just like you, I'm like, I really just want to go out. And my husband is also a former wrestler. We both we both still love wrestling, and I still enjoy learning new technique or just understanding things a little. Like you say, all these little details or nuances, or just these little details. Like, no, turn your foot like this, or whatever. And it's just fun to test it out. And the living room doesn't always cut it sometimes. Like I need an actual mat. And I was even thinking, oh, we could build a platform for it. Oh, we're gonna need a roof, lighting, we're gonna need video. I mean, it's that's I kind of want the ultimate. But yeah, I just was like, oh, he has a mat in his backyard. That's so cool. I love that. I think it's great. And I agree with you. Um, we can only consume and process so much in practice that it's really nice to be able in your downtime or whatever to be able to just like homework, be able to go back over some of those details, start making that mind to brain or mind to body connection, and just having if you have a willing participant at home. Sometimes you're just grabbing mom and it's like, look, I got to put you in a Fred headlock. I need to start working this situation. So
I I can't grab my mom, but so Evan, our team, he bumped up to heavyweight. He lives around the corner from me. So for the last, he started wrestling. We were on the same high school wrestling team, and he started as a sophomore. And so he's a sophomore. I'm a junior. COVID. So after the restrictions lifted slightly to like, I believe it was like you could have like, I think it was like your social circle was limited to 3 people.
uh-huh.
Um, I called him and I was like, hey, like you like there's more wrestling seasons and I need a practice partner and you're big, so come here. And he's been indulging like my psychotic like need to like train every single day like for literal years. and he's got this really he's got this really weird feel. Um, it's very scrambly, so it teaches me how to score through long exchanges, and also again he's big, so it's teaching me it's making sure that like I'm strong, right, and I keep that wrestling strength. Um, Especially as of late, where between like situations with work and everything, I haven't been able to like make it to a public gym to lift weights conventionally. So I mean, I've just been at home. I've been doing dips, pull-ups.
Yeah.
I have a Bulgarian bag, so I've been using that.
Oh, very nice. Those are excellent.
Yeah, I just wrestle a bunch, and it's the best. It's wrestling. I mean,
Have you gotten is it the dopamino bands? The dope, you know what I'm talking about? Those
I also
bands?
have those.
You
Yeah,
have those?
I asked for them for Christmas one year, and
How do you like them?
oh, I love them. They're fantastic. I
And
got the heaviest
learn,
bands.
can you just learn to use it on your own? Like, is there a video instruction? Like, how does that work?
There's video instructionals that are like workouts, like structured workouts. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I really like them for like I'll either use them like during my stance in motion. So like while I'm doing my stance in motion in the morning, I'll either do it with Bulgarian bag stuff or I'll do it with dopamino band stuff. Most of the time Bulgarian bag, just because the dopamino bands can sometimes be like a pain to like set up. Like if I'm outside, I don't have something to like latch it onto. If I'm in my garage, then I can latch it onto a shelf. um they're fantastic. I like to use them for like arm throws.
Yeah.
I love the like I love the, I believe they call it like helicopter, like the big core movement where like, you know, like you stretch your arms out and like you do those. I really like, I'll tie them around my bands while I'm doing foot, or sorry, I'll tie them around my ankles while I'm doing footwork. I mean, they're just fantastic. I remember um I actually at one point reached out to them and I was like, "Hey, like what do I got to do to like get some kind of deal going?" Which obviously they didn't even like acknowledge it, but it would have been cool. It would have been cool.
David, maybe we can turn that around. Maybe we need to do some videos of the WC wrestlers using them, and maybe we'll just keep hitting them up on social media and be like, hey, see us?
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, yeah. So, we've talked a lot about wrestling as an athlete, but you've been spending a lot of time coaching so far this summer. Share about what you're doing, what kind of coaching you're doing, where you're coaching.
So I've been coaching wrestling in some capacity since I was a sophomore in high school because my high school coach would encourage us to come out to the middle school, which obviously I'm like, more people should wrestle. I'm gonna go show people how to wrestle. And obviously, like when I was in high school, it was less like showing people how to. As I got later in high school, I could teach stuff, but at the time, it was just kind of like facilitating, right? Like, oh, like you know, make sure that on your penetration step, right, you don't hit both knees, right? Make sure we're level changing. Stay in your stance. Um, because it helps them too, like someone who's comparatively close to them in age, showing them rather than like
Yeah.
my coach, and they're just like, oh, like what's this wrestling stuff? Um, my coaching has, as of late, been at my old high school, which has been fantastic.
And your
I've
old
been
high
able to.
school is which school?
I went to Eastlake High School in Sammamish,
Great.
Washington. Yeah, and I mean that's been fantastic, especially since some of the upper weights at that school, again, like Evan, I would have them like come and wrestle and practice, and um I think that one of them is joining us in the fall. Ryder Haney. I don't know. I believe he was a state participant. I mean, he got like huge, and it was kind of funny because I remember like one of my teammates at 170. You know, when I was like a junior at 170, and he was a freshman. Which I mean that makes sense, right? Like he's a freshman at 170, so he's gonna get big. And I remember like after a little bit, like he got super into the gym and he just got huge. And I like the first time I practiced with him in ages, I was like, okay, I used to be able to like ragdoll you. I
Mhm.
still can, but I'm not bigger than you anymore. And I mean, it's just been fantastic, like being able to go back and teach those guys. And again, it's giving back to like this sport that has given me like, I mean, it's given me direction. Like, I mean, I'm fully comfortable saying like I would not be here if it wasn't for wrestling. Like, I just wouldn't be. And my name's never been on any list, right? I'm not some like blue chip guy where
Oh,
you
I
know, I'm
disagree, David.
uh
Blue blue chip is this term that we use to describe a very narrow group of people, but I think that's based on results. And to be a blue chip wrestler doesn't have anything to do with results. So
Ah,
I
but
consider.
I've also helped with I've helped a couple times at my local jujitsu gym
Yeah.
with takedowns. And so that's been a lot of fun as well because they help me with my jujitsu. I help them with like the wrestling portion, and I mean that's just been fantastic. Like it's a lot of fun. I just I love I just love wrestling. I love everything about it, right? Like whatever I can do like in this community is phenomenal. Like um I mean it's just what can I say? I love teaching people how to wrestle as well because a lot of people say this, but like it makes you think more critically about the sport. And whenever you're a
Yeah.
competitive athlete, it helps you to really think about like, oh, like this is how I approach this position because there's a lot of things that you don't realize that you do until you verbalize it. Like I'll be saying things, I'll give people details, and then like 10 minutes later, I'm like, I've never had that like explicitly said to me, or maybe I had like ages ago, but like I drilled it so many times it became a habit, and I could immediately like just like, all right, this is what my body does. Like here's an adjustment, right? Here's a position. I have
Hey,
been very
David, is coaching helping you become a better athlete? Because I've heard this from someone who's very, very accomplished athlete. He was a NCAA All-American for Boise State University. And he said when he started coaching, he's like, I became such a better athlete because I finally had to start thinking about so much more. I had to learn so much more. Are you finding that as you're coaching all these people?
100%. I mean, there's kind of an asterisk where in the off season practices
Hmm.
where I kind of took point on some things, but it became like it became such a thing where like I was running warm-ups. I was saying like, okay, we're gonna do this technique, and here's like the fixes. Like I would have to go around and like like people would ask, and
Yeah.
I and selfishly I started wrestling worse. I had a really bad like couple weeks of practices, so eventually like one day like everyone comes in, and I'm just kind of like, hey guys, I'm still gonna do this. I'm just gonna limit my capacity a bit more, but it 100% like helped me, like especially one of the biggest things was WSU had a leadership in wrestling clinic. I believe it was January, I think, and I had to, first off, it was my first time teaching very very young children. It was my first
Yeah.
time, like, because up to that point the youngest I taught was like middle school, and I was trying to show like 5-year-olds how to like set up a double leg, and I kept it very simple. I was like, all right guys, so we're gonna club, and we're gonna post, and then we're gonna shoot. But the thing that was very nuts to me is I started wrestling whenever I was like 11, right? And I kind of like jokingly, like at the start of like my demonstration, I said like, who here has heard of Jordan Burroughs? And like all these kids like raised their hands, and I was like, wow, okay, this is nicer than I thought it was gonna be, because I um and so I got to work with really small kids, and then this summer I've been like like I was ecstatic whenever I got the text from Coach Phil. Like he was saying that WSU Wrestling is doing a clinic at Cedro Woolley High School,
Yeah.
and he asked if I would like to work the camp, and I was like, oh my god, yes, because now I get to like with the WSU leadership clinic, we had a list of like things that we wanted to cover,
Hmm.
and so with this one, it's like I'm gonna get my own little session, and I'm gonna, oh, I can brainstorm like
Yeah.
whatever weird thing that I want to show these kids, and like it's I love coaching. Again, like I really like. I'm very focused on my own development. I until the day that like I die. Like if you ask me like, oh, which did you prefer, competing or coaching? I'm gonna say competing. Although again, that's probably a young man's perspective. Um,
That's a very insightful point you're making there. It is
but
a little bit
it's
of a young person's perspective, but yeah.
very very short term thinking. But I mean, it's just, and part of it is again a gratitude thing. It's just like I get to do something for this sport, which I've tried to do like a myriad of times. I've written articles for people. I this is not my first foray into the world of wrestling podcasting, weirdly enough. Um there was a moment that really stood out to me, which was like I should do more in like the community of wrestling. And
Hmm.
it was I'm constantly in wrestling comment sections. I always, just all the time. Not arguing. Well, sometimes, but
Mild
um,
debate,
mild debate. And
vigorous dialogue.
yeah, and I was, but this time it wasn't like a debate or argument or something. I can't even recall for the life of me what I said, but it was on a wrestling page,
Yeah,
and wrestling changed my life. Which was not the page. That's a separate page, but
that's a
it's the
great
podcast.
podcast.
Yeah, I
It's a
love
great
that
podcast.
guy. And he responds to my comment and says, "When are you gonna start like a wrestling media account?" And I was like, "Oh my," because he was like, "Oh, like I see you in all these comment sections. When are you gonna start a wrestling media account?" And I'm like, "Oh, wow." And it just made me think way
Stay
more
tuned,
critically about
everybody, to this guy's podcast for wrestling.
maybe,
He
but
talks about his passion and his favorite sport.
yeah, and it's just I went from like a guy who I was like, all right, I titles, win, 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 like get better at wrestling, to like still that, not so much the titles focus, just I want to be good at wrestling. I like wrestling. Um, but less that and more like give to wrestling. Like this sport has like I again I can't say it enough. Like it's given me direction. It's given me life. It's phenomenal. It's the best thing in the world.
I
So
think
I want to contribute
there
to
always
that.
comes a point in sport, and it happens, I think, at different stages for everybody that's an athlete. But we we start to really be able to be grateful for all the people that we've had, all the coaches, all the assistant coaches, all the great wrestling dads, all the great wrestling moms, all the teammates, all the the tournament director, the para person. We just start to realize all the helping hands that come in to support our athletic pursuits. And then we just start to see that ourselves in that image at some point. And a lot of it's just maturity, timing, whatever the case may be, and gaining some confidence in coaching. And then all of a sudden it's just you want to be in service to the community that is in service to you. And so I know that so far. You're only athlete edition number 4, but everybody's talking about becoming a coach. All of the 4 people so far, athletes are like, yeah, I want to go coach. It's a way to stay connected to the sport. It's actually, we think of coaching as like this static position where I know everything and now I just take what I know and I hand it over. Coaching is just like being an athlete. You can never know it all. You'll never be perfect at it. There are so many failed attempts at coaching, how to communicate effectively with all the different kinds of athletes, how to do periodization correctly. Did we peak them, the best we could? Are we doing all the things to reduce injury risk? Are we just saying that we promote a healthy nutritional attitude on this program, but are we really, there's so many things and it changes year after year. So coaches are often a lot like athletes. There is no end to the learning. There's no end to how much more you can do. And coaches have to evolve and grow and be challenged just as much as athletes. The good ones are like that. They are always learning and they're open to learning. And the really good ones have managed their egos really, really well and realize that it's a mutually beneficial relationship between athlete and coach. I, for one, cannot wait to spend some time with you and a bunch of the other wrestlers in the room and just go over technique. Okay, David, what do you got for this? What do you got for that? What do you got for this? Okay. And, I think something that could be kind of fun, maybe this will be part of your podcast, but we could just have our own, Technique Tuesday of David showing, okay, everybody, we're learning this, everyone get, push back the furniture in your living rooms. WSU alumni, push back your furniture. I'm going to teach you how to wrestle. What do you think?
I I am such an absurd technique nerd. One of my favorite episodes I ever did of a wrestling podcast was I got to, now this didn't age very well, but I did a technical analysis on the positions and ways that Isaiah Martinez could beat Kyle Dake. in 2019. It would have been 2019 because that was when Martinez's career was still like it still had an upward trajectory, right?
Yeah.
It was when he was still primarily a competitor, rather than I mean he's doing fantastic things coaching now.
Yeah.
But I did this super long like technical analysis of like all these different positions. When I was writing for Fanatic Wrestling, um, I no one from there is going to see this, but even if they do, I mean, it's just a fact of the matter. Um, I was not able to keep that job because rather than selling DVDs explicitly and saying like buy this, buy this, buy this, I would pick like the athlete doing the DVD. I would pick a match and I would just break it down. I would just break it down in long form, and they were like, "You can't keep doing these," and I'm like, "What? Bite me." I was like, um, it was like because I also felt that was the best way to sell the technique. I'm like, oh, here he's doing this, which you can learn on the DVD, and da da da. Da. And
Mhm.
it just completely like, I mean, again, like I watch so much film. I watch an absolutely absurd amount of film, um, and it is I Technique Tuesday. I am all for it. It is like my
Okay.
favorite thing.
We'll do Technique Tuesday. It's a 6-minute. We'll do a 6-minute drill. So you have 6 minutes, the same amount of time in a match, to show your technique.
I
Right? I mean, I think we should do it. I think it would be a great service from WSU Wrestling to the wrestling community, to just have a little Technique Tuesday with David. And hey, maybe for all of our followers, if they do a video back learning the technique, they get a free WSU Technique Tuesday T-shirt.
I could film the first Technique Tuesday today. I mean, I'm gonna I'm gonna go train more.
Should I go move my furniture? I got a big ottoman. Like I just push it away. I've
I don't
actually
know.
thought about taking some tape and just making a circle in my living room and be like, okay, this is the space where I'm gonna work on stuff in my living room. But
That's not a bad idea at all.
I just don't have the mat yet. I think that's the anniversary present this year. You know,
I
some women want a vacation, maybe a ring, piece of jewelry, shopping spree, whatever. Romantic getaway with the stuff. No, I would like a wrestling mat, please. And I would like one that goes with my landscaping so that it all is, you know,
there you go. It all flows nice.
just want it all to be pretty.
Yeah.
Speaking of pretty, I thought Puerto Rico was a beautiful. At least when we got out of town, what was it, on Sunday or Monday? We went on out to that historical
Old
area.
San Juan.
It was so pretty. The architecture, beautiful. I loved it all. That was a really, really fun day. Just doing a little bit of light travel and, exploration. But walk me through your thoughts now that you've had a lot of time to kind of reflect and process, just share your thoughts about nationals, both as an individual and as a team member.
I think I'm gonna start with as an individual. Uh, I I think I said this like a couple times at both like the immediate post nationals dinner and then at the one in Pullman. Uh, for about 2 or 3 weeks, like I felt unstoppable. Like literally, like just no, like I felt untouchable, and I feel comfortable saying that because frankly, I I mean I was training my butt off. I trained my butt off year round, but I also felt like I was peaking correctly. I
Yeah.
was like my own between both my own weightlifting and the team weightlifting because of course I'm gonna show up to both. Um, I I was doing everything correct. I was managing load and everything in terms of like my technical adjustments. I felt that I was making the correct ones.
Hmm.
Um, whenever I reflect on my matches at nationals, because I mean, me being me, I've watched all my matches millions of times. Um, I just I'm such a high volume offense person that a lot of the time, like the other guy doesn't get like his go,
Hmm.
and so that is my defense, right? Just suffocate them with like my offense. But whenever people would be in on my legs, um, except for certain niche situations, I had a lot of trouble defending. Um, and so that's been a huge point of emphasis for me. Reattacking, defending, just being like, okay, I know I can score points. I need to stop the other guy from scoring points on me. just because it makes my wrestling just that little bit more airtight. Whenever I think about, I had one match that was a rematch of the conference finals.
Yeah.
I must admit that one I was not super proud of that. Everyone on my team was like, he's gonna shoot the low single off the whistle, but like I used to be a low single off the whistle guy in high school, and I knew full well the mind game I was playing because I knew I would wrestle people, and they would be like, he's gonna low single off the whistle, or is he this time?
Yeah.
And da 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 da. So I got caught in that, and so he got the first takedown, but I remember I was thinking about this earlier today, actually, whenever I was doing my stance in motion, and I wanted to hit that like extra gear, and I was just thinking, I was reflecting on my thought process whenever I got taken down, because I remember like once the ref like threw up two, I was like, because I remember going into the match and thinking like, oh, like if he shoots low single, I'll go over the top far ankle scramble and like end up on top, and then I didn't do that because he finished it crisp, like more crisp than most people finish low singles nowadays. And I remember being on bottom, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do that again. But I was also like, I'm going to find a way out of this. And he got like 2 minutes of riding time on me. But even then, like I was down going into the third. I was down pretty significantly. But I was like, no, I know my lungs are better, and I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna figure this out. And it was really just a matter of like I just have to hold some things up. Now there was a kid from Ohio State who I wrestled who's very, very good. Um and that one is just get better. Just hold up everything. Especially my leg defense. He had a really good left high crotch, and I had to down block that a little bit harder, and I failed to do that. That's just that. My match with the Central Florida guy, that one got a little ugly. I remember I came off the mat, and Coach Susan basically said like, you gave me a heart attack. And I was like, I gave myself a heart attack. My match with the Liberty guy in the round of 12, I think it was. Uh, I blew that match with a pretty bad underhook throw by attempt. So I it has been we're season ended in March. It is now June, the middle of June. I have drilled my underhook throw by, my single leg, double leg, and reattacking. That is it. Like that is it. Some other stuff thrown in there, like especially now as we get later into the summer, I'm a little bit more willing to diversify my offense. But it's just I've just been focused on that. As a team, I felt that, and this is gonna come off harsh, but I feel like we didn't live up to like the energy in the room leading up to it. I think losing the conference title was kind of a dampener initially. But I mean, we still had good energy leading up to nationals. It's just
Yeah.
I felt like we didn't live up to like that energy. Like we got there, and like and obviously this is highly individualized, and I don't shame anyone for what's going on in their own affairs. It's just little things, right? And I mean, it's a very young team. We had a lot of freshmen coming to nationals, and I want to be like really clear. They're freshmen. It's nationals. We had a very strong showing as a team,
Yeah.
and it's just not strong enough. I mean, that's the problem with you have a team, and we're all competitors, right? Nothing's ever good enough, and especially like like after the performance that we had, where it's kind of like, well, you know, um, none of the men place. Bobby loses a heartbreaker. Kobe loses a heartbreaker. Um, I still think about that Liberty match. I try that underhook throw by, and he gets the points that give him the lead, and then he just holds on to that lead like that. I full like full disclosure, that keeps me up at night, right? But it's a matter of like what you do about it, and I have full confidence in this team, and I also have full confidence in our women's team. Not to
Yeah.
I'm so sorry because how I was previously talking kind of felt like that was left out, but I mean, our women kick ass every single time that we go to any tournaments, right?
Yeah, I'm excited about how much it's gonna grow for next season, and
Especially,
just the
yeah.
size of the women's team, the number of I mean, the recruiting in general right now seems extraordinary.
Washington women's wrestling is just, I mean, it's
Washington
phenomenal.
WSU Women's Wrestling and how it's going to grow, and the recruiting extraordinary. WSU Wrestling men and the recruiting and people are coming in, it's extraordinary. I'm really, really, I think just to maybe reframe what you're describing at nationals is, you know, coming off of conference, it just the hype and the energy. And it's always so interesting too. Environments always have a way of having an effect on our experience, right? Small gymnasium. Shout out to Ahoquiam High School for supporting NWCA wrestling. That was awesome. If you weren't there, they had the most amazing, what was it, cheeseburger? You probably didn't eat it. They had amazing cheeseburgers. I got a t-shirt. I bought a t-shirt. I think they opened that gymnasium. If it wasn't for free, it was a minimal cost. I just so appreciate our wrestling community, and especially small schools like that, where the schools can
Absolutely.
often be the heart of the community, and they open their doors like, yeah, have your nationals. So it was this really small, intimate environment with all these teams. It was loud, right?
Yes.
And every match just felt like everything. And then those finals matches. And so in a lot of ways, it's going to nationals in Puerto Rico in this big conference area. It does have a little bit of a different feel, and it's sometimes a challenge to like get that vibe back, right? I think just reframing, we're so proud of you guys, and how well you were competing and performing. But we also know, like to your point, we had some young people that had never been to nationals before, and that's just a growth and maturity process, and we know that they're going to come along. And it's also okay to be proud of what you accomplished, but also be like, yeah, I think we can do better. Like we're capable. I can't wait for the season to start in next year's nationals, which will not be in Puerto Rico. It'll be, I hope, much
From a
closer.
logistics perspective, thank goodness. Puerto Rico was amazing. The food, oh my goodness. The scenery, all of it,
Yeah.
from a logistics perspective, nightmarish. Like,
But
ugh.
David, let me ask you something about that, because there's something I think is so critically important: adaptability and resilience. And so, as a former athlete that has I've had the absolute blessing and benefit of having traveled the world through wrestling and had a lot of Puerto Rico type experiences. Um, I think what's really important in sports and in life is adaptability and resilience. And while the Puerto Rico, first of all, hats off to Susan and Phil and all the
Yes.
other people that got an Airbnb, and hats off to the mom of the guy who,
Mrs. Rosemarin.
yes, her, thank you. Yes, we're gonna have to do an episode with her, because we gotta like get down to like,
Yes.
we gotta dig into that. She was amazing. The way Susan and she worked together at the food, the Costco, the what da da da, the bugs, what was it, the cockroaches or whatever.
There's
They
cockroaches?
eat. What was the bug? Is it cockroaches? What was the bug
I,
in
I don't
Puerto
remember
Rico?
bug problems in Puerto Rico. Although
Where
I get,
were you? Okay, so there were cockroaches.
oh my goodness.
And you know, not some of the creature comforts of home, right? And so, what do we do in that scenario? Do we whine and complain and or are we like, we're okay, we have our basic needs met. We got a roof over our head, we got water, we got food, we got people, we got transportation, we're all okay. So we gotta let go of these things in our minds about how the way things are supposed to be grateful for what we have, and then adapt, right? Like, okay, we got to start making some changes, right? When we That's why I think those, while they're not like ideal, oh yeah, we'd all love to be in a 5-star hotel right across from the venue, right?
I like the Airbnb environment.
Oh,
It's
that was
tight knit.
great.
It was yeah, I mean my whole thing like during all of it was just like even like little things where it's like I don't love flying, but like every single time that like we're waking up at like 4 in the morning or whatever. So I don't know if you know this. I unfortunately can't recall if you ever stayed with us at Coach Phil's, but my teammates hate me for this. I set an alarm like an hour before we're supposed to leave because for one, I'm like, listen, I know y'all sleep and I want to make sure that we're awake. But part of it is for me, I'm just like, sweet, I get to get up and like because my whole thing is just like I get to wrestle. Like no matter what was going on in Puerto Rico, I got extremely sunburnt. I um like no matter what was going on in Puerto Rico, like I was just like I get to wrestle. And like then whenever like this stuff happened with like the travel back and like going to Denver, I was like, sweet, I get to like go to Colorado. I've never been to Colorado. Even if it's just the airport, never been to Colorado. And then whenever we got to the airport, I was like, is that Shake Shack and Voodoo Donuts? And I was like, oh sweet. And it was, I mean,
And that Voodoo Donuts. I don't know if I'm still in the shot here, but oh, I don't have it. I got a hat. Oh, I don't
oh
have it.
wow.
I don't have it with me. I got a hat. That Voodoo Donuts was all I needed to restore the balance in my life. It was all I needed. And you know, that trip back, I feel like every wrestling trip I have ever had overseas on the way back is they were all like that. Just
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's just normal. But you know, I had the benefit of not having then to go to work the next day or have, you know, these real very like I had actually built a 2-day window for recovery after that trip, which
Oh,
by the way,
nice.
all the athletes, including yourself, when you need a transitionary period of recovery. It's almost for your brain as much as it is for your body. Of course, your body needs that, but we need all the travel, all that stuff is emotionally and physically exhausting. Also, air travel, being flying at 30,000 feet, all the pressure is actually really dehydrating. It's fatiguing. You don't even realize it. And so when you get home, it's really important to build in. I need this recovery period just from the travel.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that. But okay, um, okay, let's real quick give me the information about the Cedro Woolley camp so that everybody who's watching this one is going to know about that.
So Cedro Woolley High School, they run an annual Cub camp. It is from July 13th through 15th. I can't off the top of my head unfortunately recall the cost of admission, but again, it's at Cedro Woolley High School.
Okay.
And they have a bunch of clinicians coming in, and it's not just WSU guys. There's a WSU day, but then there's going to be a day where we have a couple of Oregon State alums coming in, including All-American Brandon Kaler. We also
Whoa.
have on the third day Shane Griffith, who's now at Michigan. He's a two-time national finalist, national champion, I believe, four-time All-American so far. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, who's this David guy? If you're listening to this, you almost definitely know who Shane Griffith is, though. So
Yeah.
if you're like, oh, who's this guy? Then it's like, you know what? Go learn from Shane Griffith because I'm gonna be at that camp learning from Shane Griffith too.
Hey, I think I might try to make it up for this because I want to learn from David and Shane and this other guy. Like, you know, I want to learn from everybody. It's all good. Oh, David guy. Oh, doesn't he do the 6-minute drill on Technique Tuesday? That guy. I'm coming. Golf tournament. Are you coming to the golf tournament?
that is the plan. Yeah.
Saturday, July 22nd.
Uh
Um, are you gonna play golf?
huh.
Okay, okay.
I'm okay at some sports. Golf, maybe.
You know, I think we need to ask if we can come early and all the wrestlers can go get a bucket of balls and just go out to the driving range. And I think we just got to see what we're
Oh,
dealing with here. Like
that would
what
be
we're really
phenomenal.
looking at.
Driving range.
Yeah, just get on the driving range and let's just look at what we're dealing with. Let's just get an assessment of which wrestlers can swing a club and who can't.
Yeah.
Who's the Charles Barkley of WSU Wrestling? Do you know about Charles Barkley and his golf swing? Horrendous.
Oh boy.
It's so bad you can't look at it. Now I don't know if he's fixed it, but a while back he had what's called a hitch in his swing. It was you have to turn away. You couldn't look. It was that bad. It was probably a violation of everything that's good about golf was in his
I know
swing.
what film I'm watching tonight then.
So I think we should do that. Also, I've asked Phil and Susan, primarily Phil, because he's the baseball guy, that we need to have a softball tournament with the WSU wrestling team.
No.
Have you heard about this?
I have not heard the notion, but that sounds fun. Yeah.
I asked for it. I'm like, we need with all the team coming in, we need to have a team softball tournament. There
Absolutely.
needs to be a horrific trophy and teams and T-shirts and bragging rights to have this trophy, and that's all I want. That's all I'm asking for from that
Winning team gets like a bucket of Tang.
bucket of tang right there.
Exactly. Well, not that, but that's your bucket of Tang.
This is my very special, if everyone can see, it's my Cougar Wrestling tang with this very nice little treatment that Susan Burnett made for me. I'm super grateful. And as we continue to go along with Inside the Den, we'll reveal why tang is such a big deal. Now, David, are you ready to do 5 burning questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I gotta find them. I wrote them down. Or did I write them down? Where are they? Oh, they're right here. Free weights or resistance bands?
Free weights. I like Olympic lifting. I like snatches. Resistance bands are good as like an add-on thing,
Okay.
and I wouldn't do just bands.
It's either or. You had to pick one. So you said free weights. I'm just surprised.
Ah,
Since you
yeah.
love the is it dopamino band? How do you pronounce it?
I think it's dopamino. I
Okay.
used to think it was dopamineo, but then like I mean, I heard so many, especially because they picked up so many sponsored athletes. So I got it before they started, not to sound like a hipster, but I got it before they started hopping on like sponsoring everybody. And
Not
so
to
they all
sound
started
like a
thinking,
hipster. That's hilarious. Okay. Do hipsters just buy things before everybody else does? Is that hipster?
it's the whole like, oh, I liked it before it was cool. Like that
Oh,
sort of like,
I'm 52. I've liked everything before you all thought it was cool.
that's a fair point. You liked wrestling before I thought it was cool.
Dude, I've been loving wrestling since 1985. That was my first year of wrestling on the boys wrestling team at Richland High School. Head coach was Mr. David Bennett, or Doc Bennett is how he is also known. I mean, no one's going to know who I'm talking about, but
There's an invite named after him.
there's an invite named after David Bennett.
Yeah, I think so. The Doc Bennett.
Doc Bennett?
If I remember right, I think I wrestled in it once, but yeah,
Really?
yeah.
That was my high school coach.
Oh,
Imagine the leadership, the character of a man in a amongst men's wrestling and high school wrestling at that time, being supportive of a skinny 100-pound girl who turns out for the team. It was horrible, by the way, horrible when I started, and just gave me an opportunity. I think that's what's so important with coaching in sport. It's just providing kids opportunity, right? It's such a big deal. You think it's not, but just welcoming everyone into your wrestling room, figuring out how to connect with them one-on-one, finding out what their why is, or as Coach Phil says, what's your dream, which is still that episode is still so impactful, with the what's your dream, and good coaches do that. So yeah, I had a good coach. Okay. Plant-based protein or a steak?
steak. Anyone, I would, whenever I was at WSU, or well, whenever I was back at WSU
Yeah,
during the semesters, I would treat myself to like a steak like once every 2 weeks, and I'm super passionate about like cooking it, just like because it makes me feel fantastic as well. I still remember like one of the best practices I had in the last year. My pre-practice meal was tri-tip steak. I felt like it was like rocket fuel.
great. Who knew? Maybe I should try some steak before tournaments. I need some rocket fuel. Okay, this is a yes or no. Are burpees the single best complete like body only exercise?
No.
Um, careful. Careful what you're gonna say now. I was
I can give
listening.
my alternative.
Okay, I would oh, so the answer is no. What's your alternative?
I would say, well, if we're gonna like, it has to engage every single muscle group.
Yeah, so only using your body, no weights, no bands, no anything. The single best complete muscle groups, little cardio, core, you name it. Is that the most? Oh my gosh, you're a kinesiology major. We're getting right. I mean, good. This is something you should answer. What's better
Rope
than a
climb.
burpee?
I would say rope climbs.
But what if you don't have a rope? I mean, most people don't have a rope. You've got a mat in your backyard. I don't. You do you have a rope in your backyard too?
I don't have a rope in my backyard, but what I do have is a towing cable in my garage. And what I'll do is I have a ladder, and I've been using this ladder to do pull-ups since quarantine. And I'll
Okay.
set it up on the ladder. I'll tie the towing cable to the top of the ladder, climb it like a rope.
Okay. For wrestling, I think rope climbing is one of the single best exercises, hands down. You will never get me to argue with you on that point. Which is why I had a really wonderful opportunity to coach 4 seasons at a local high school, and they had this huge, uh, like they had like 4 mats in this room. It was that big. Okay, they
Wow.
they couldn't have a rope. They couldn't have a climbing rope, and I just walked in there and like no pull-up bars, no rope. Like I don't, what's going on in here? And there was an issue of safety, and I'm just like I don't understand wrestling without a climbing rope. Hang on just a second. We're gonna pause.
No worries.
So we had to just cut out there for a minute, and I'm coming back in. Rope climbing, can't disagree. For wrestling, it's awesome. But if I don't have a rope to climb, and I need to do one single, you're telling me burpees is what else you got besides burpees?
Dive bombs, which are burpee like, they're still like a push-up, but you
Okay,
can, because I feel that I work more of my body whenever I do when I do those, because on the diving motion I can feel very consciously like pull through my lats,
I
and
know
then
what you're
whenever,
talking about.
yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
and then when I extend, like I can feel like through my legs and just
Are you still doing the jump? So you're jump down and then you dive in.
um not on those. No. I mean, you could. That would be very interesting.
Okay,
No jumping. Oh,
David, do you know
that
what a
would.
burpee is?
I do know what a burpee is.
Okay. That, oh, the 6-minute drill technique Tuesday, we could just do top 5 in your backyard exercises with David.
Oh, there we go.
We can showcase that, right? On
Ah,
your
yeah.
mat. We'll do it on the mat. Okay. Ice cream or cake?
Oh, oh, that's so hard.
Gotta ask wrestlers a food question.
Gotta.
I'm not asking a healthy one for goodness sake. I'm gonna ask about the ones that I want that are meaningful to me.
In terms of foods that, like, when I'm like cutting weight, I'm like, oh, I'm really craving this ice cream.
Oh,
I will eat cake if there's an opportunity for cake, but I will actively seek out ice cream. So
you
ice cream.
answered it. It's ice cream. Okay. Um, I don't know if you are aware. I'm sure you are aware. So I don't even know why I started to ask the question that way. New rules for NCWA wrestling. David, 3-point takedown or a 2-point takedown?
2. And my reasoning for that is, the reason that they are proposing these new rules is because finals viewership was down on ESPN, like compared to previous years, but they didn't think about the reason of viewership being down as anything other than like, oh, we don't see a lot of takedowns in the finals. When from a technical perspective and from like a modern strategy perspective, we're not seeing a lot of takedowns in the NCAA finals because people are really good at defending. People are really good at
Good
reattacks.
point.
And so
Good point.
whenever we increase the amount of points that a takedown is, we risk happening is people becoming more gun shy on their attacks, even more gun shy because they don't want to give up a 3-point go behind. Now, the other thing for me is how many matches did the incorrect wrestler win because a takedown wasn't worth 3 points? Whenever I think about rules changes as drastic as how many points a maneuver is, I have to think about, like, is this maneuver being incorrectly rewarded or not? And the 2-point takedown is such a staple because it works, right? I mean, even whenever the freestyle rules swapped in 2013, where they went from one
takedown to a 2-point takedown.
Yeah, it just made sense. Also, everyone's talked about this, but I'm not shouting 3. I'm not doing it. I'm not holding up 3 fingers. I'm not like saying to a ref like that's 3. 2. It's 2.
I'm gonna yell 2. You can't make me change my mind. And one of the things I'm really excited about is it gonna be this? Is it gonna be this? I would like to recommend the referee has to do this. Right, takedown. You gotta do this. Go through him. You gotta do this.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting to see
Yes.
how the 3-point takedown. What's really gonna be interesting is there a mindset change on attacking offensively with a 3-point takedown? It's gonna be interesting to see how coaches game that situation. And you know, we're all gonna say 2, and that's fine. You know, like whatever. It's not a big deal.
My last thing with the 3-point takedown is if I take you down at the end of a period and I get my 3 and I take you down feet to back and I get my full count, that's a 7-point move. And then I pick bottom in the second, I go up or I get my escape. I'm halfway to attack in 2 moves. I'm halfway to attack in 2 moves. Or I take you down, turn you, stand up in the second period. I'm halfway to attack in 3 moves, which is because I don't feel like their goal was we want to see more technical falls.
I don't think that's what they were looking for at all. I think they were looking. I don't know what they were looking for. NCAA rules and folk style is NCAA folk style collegiate rules. That's not where I live. I still am a little still more in the high school space, and then I certainly understand freestyle a little bit more. But I will say that I wrestled in the era of the 1-point takedown and the 5. It wasn't periods. It was just a full 5 minutes. And how much, you know, when you're talking about really high level competition where everybody is really good, like you said, getting a takedown is it's really tough. So the 1-point reward, I was like, man, you know, I'm thrilled that at least the one thing we can count on between folk style and freestyle is at least the takedown it was the same, and now it's not. So I don't know, whatever. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see, you know, like how it all shakes out. But like you, I'm yelling too. I can't help it. There was a what we call women's nationals. It's where we have the tournament to determine who is on the schoolgirl USA team. I say schoolgirl, the names have all changed. The U20, all those teams. They used to be called Body Bar because it was sponsored by this person who owned this company called Body Bar. It was a weightlifting, it was a weighted bar, and he sponsored this women's nationals in Texas. It's where it had always been, and we all called it Body Bar. Everything was Body Bar. It's like how we used to call everything cadets, juniors, and schoolboy, schoolgirl, right? Or
yeah, now it's like what U15, U17.
It's all the U's, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't make me change. It's cadets. Or way back in the day, it was called S-Bar Nationals. We don't call it S-Bar anymore. You know, it's fine. These are not radical changes, you know, changing the names of things. But a 3-point takedown is going to be curious. Going to be interesting.
Very.
David, any final thoughts? Any parting words? Words of encouragement? Things you're excited about for the future, this next season? What do you got for us? I know it's so much.
I'm excited to wrestle. I want to wrestle. I'm gonna get off this and I'm gonna go wrestle Evan. Although if he's still gonna come, and if that doesn't happen, then I'm just gonna I have a throwing dummy, just gonna do that, break a hard sweat.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to compete. I love it. And if you're on the team and you're listening to this right now and you haven't done stance and motion today, get on that.
Get in your
Um,
living room, get in your backyard, go to the park, wear your knee pads. Don't be also your description of doing 1,000 shots where you wearing knee pads. No.
I don't
Okay.
like wearing knee pads, and that cost me.
Okay. Wrestle harder, but also wrestle smarter. Train harder,
Yeah,
train smarter. It can't, we need a balance of both. Right.
I
Okay, David. Awesome episode. I think you and I are going to have to do it again because we just scratched the surface, and I know you and I could
100%.
we can marathon talk this forever. But this has been really enjoyable for me. I will try to make it to Cedar Woolley. I'll see you at the golf tournament. But I, for one, I want to learn everything you know because that's what it's all about, and I hope other people do too.
I mean, shoot, I want to learn everything you know. I've not made 5 world teams.
Well, it's been a while, but I think I remember some stuff.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks, David.
And thank you, Coach. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
Hello. We forgot to film it yesterday for the podcast, but the next WSU wrestler I would like to nominate for Inside the Den is Sarah Plummer. She brought a lot of really good energy to every single practice, even in the postseason when sometimes there were practices that she couldn't practice in. She would show up and do homework, and she brought a lot of really good energy in the room, and I think that would be a really good next episode.